And we are live. It's Dr. J here in the house. We got a Thanksgiving Day weekend in store for everyone. Excited to dive in and hit some Q&As. What's happening, everyone? All right, couple of questions here off the bat. Dennis writes in, what's the difference between memory loss from schizophrenia and memory loss from Alzheimer's? So schizophrenia has different symptoms, okay? So schizophrenia has a lot of different hallucinations and such. And it's going to be much more pathological. You're going to have the symptoms are going to be a lot more acute, where Alzheimer's is going to be more of a chronic degenerative condition where lots of either beta amyloid or various tau plaques are going to form in the brain over time. So usually there's a plaquing difference. They call Alzheimer's typically type 3 diabetes is usually a blood sugar issue in regarding Alzheimer's and insulin resistance, and that usually involves plaquing, where schizophrenia is going to have much more hallucination type of thing. Not necessarily memory loss, but more hallucination. And it's going to be much more extreme, much more acute. And it's going to typically happen even when you're relatively younger, not necessarily older, where Alzheimer's is more of an older type of issue, right? Alzheimer's starts in your 20s and 30s and starts to manifest in your 70s and 80s. Great questions, though. Are you completely against medicine, or are you open to anything that works well? So I'm open to the correct tool for the job. So if you have a toolbox or a tool bag with you, you're not partial to the Allen wrench over the flathead screwdriver or the Phillips head. You just say, hey, this tool is the best for this job, right? You got to have a non-dogmatic approach. The problem is conventional medicine, allopathic medicine, is great for acute care. All right. Now, taking the acute care model and applying it to chronic model, the chronic care model doesn't work, because with the acute care model, you already know what the root cause is. The root cause was the fall. It was the car accident. It was the broken bone from falling off the horse, whatever, right? You already know what the underlying cause is. Therefore, you don't have to address the root cause because it was a one-off. It was an acute issue. Now you triage, you fix the patient, you mend the bone, you reduce the inflammation, etc. With chronic degenerative disease, you don't know what the root cause is. The root cause is not apparent because they're not trained to look at the root cause metabolically, diet-wise, lifestyle-wise, stress-wise, supplement-wise, nutritional-wise. Therefore, they're giving medications to manage the disease or manage the symptoms. Two totally different things. Traumatic issues, you don't have to get to the root cause. It's a one-off. It's one and done. You triage, you get the patient stabilized, and you're done. Chronic conditions, they're managing the disease / symptoms, and they're giving medications, and a lot of times that may be helpful, but typically over the long term, they don't fix the underlying issue, and the symptoms end up being worse in the long term, especially with autoimmune conditions. They have prednisone, they have immunosuppressants, they have biologics. They don't have much in their tool bag. So it's all about utilizing the tool bag, and it's all about, are you getting to the root cause? If you have that perspective, it makes a lot more sense. Grace writes in, hey, Grace, hope you're doing well. I've been experiencing a feeling like I'm on a boat while in New York City. Happened every time I was walking into a building. Any thoughts? If it's happening when you're walking in buildings, there could be some mold exposure potentially that's affecting your vestibular or your nervous system. I would need to get a little bit more intel, but it could be some kind of a toxin stress if that's what's driving it. Matt writes in, I think acute things like aspirin to mitigate headaches when you understand why it happened and how to avoid it in the future. Exactly. So if you're using like a medication, like an ibuprofen or an aspirin, and you know you drank too much last night, you already know what the root cause is, right? Not that big of a deal. Now, if it's happening every day and you don't understand why the root cause is there, it's a different story. So you have to understand the situation, make sure that you are not managing symptoms long-term, make sure you're getting to the root cause, and also look at the side effect profile. A lot of medications long-term are going to have side effects that are going to be quite deleterious and may even make you sick and worse off in the long run. Lambert writes in, if in the GI map test H. pylori is detected but under pathogenic limits, 5e to the 2, with the borderline being 1e to the 3, should it be treated and how? Yes, I would still treat it. You're still within 50% of the range. Essentially 5e to the 2 is 0.5e to the 3. So you're just 50% below range. So I would still treat it for sure. And again, I want to know what else is going on there, but typically I do a combination of GI, clear 1, 2, and 4. For those, but it depends on what else is happening. I may even throw mastic gum in there by itself too. It really depends. Matt White writes in, hope you're doing well. What's your Thanksgiving plans? Running a turkey trot, anything? So typically I'm going to be smoking my turkey. I got a nice little smoke. I got a maple, applewood, and hickory blend, and I'm going to be smoking my turkey for 5 hours. I got these really cool Weber grill wireless probes that are like Bluetooth connected, so I plug them into all 4 quadrants of the turkey, and I can kind of map it out, make sure everything's perfect. It'll be organic, pasture-fed, and then we got family coming by, so we're going to do about 4, maybe 5 or 6 different sides, and a good chunk of them are going to be grain-free, gluten-free, and then we have some good autoimmune kind of paleo desserts that are going to be really nice as well. So I appreciate you asking. Really excited about that. Typically I'll work out in the morning and then get the turkey going. That'll cook over about 5 hours or so. We get the sides done this week, so we have some help. We try to chip away at 1 or 2 sides a night, and then we have friends and family coming by that'll bring some sides. Great questions. Rhonda writes in, I usually have a high blood sugar around 95 to 105 after waking. It seems to be normal other times of the day. My A1C was 5.5. Is it something I should be concerned about? Probably not. You have to, I need to know what your diet is, but in general, it could be just what's called the dawn phenomenon. Cortisol increases in the first hour of waking about 50%, about 50 to 100%. So your cortisol will double in that first hour, and that can mobilize more blood sugar. So the high blood sugar in the morning may not be driven by food. It could just be driven by your natural stress hormone response. So that's why you want to look at your blood sugar fasting, which is fine. But also do a functional glucose tolerance. Do a 1 hour, do a fasting blood sugar, and then do a 1, 2, 3 hour blood sugar and see how you're responding to your meal. If you're getting back below 100 within 3 hours, then you're probably fine. Ideally, before 2 is great, but 3 is still acceptable as well. Best alternative way to drop a fever, you don't want to drop a fever. If it's 105 or below, you don't want to drop it. Fevers are a natural way your body goes to kill bacteria. The only time a fever may be a problem is if you had head trauma. If you had head trauma, you bumped your head, car accident, then there could be some hypothalamic regulation issues where your autonomic nervous system's not working properly, and then you could potentially overheat. But fevers are a natural response to go kill mesophilic bacteria by getting your body temperature up. So as long as there's no head trauma, more than likely it's not a problem. Cloud Smiles writes in, I have candida, histamine intolerance, other gut issues. I think it's what causes the dark circles under my eyes because I am seeing veins expand. Do you think that could be it? So when you're seeing allergic shiners, the first thing we look at is food allergens, right? Food allergens. And then, of course, we look at not being able to digest or break down our food. So we always follow the 6 R's, remove the bad foods. And some people, it's paleo is enough. Some people, they have to go more specific and go autoimmune, go low histamine, low FODMAP. Everyone's a little bit different. And then, of course, we have to add in digestive support. People that have gut stress tend to not be able to make enough stomach acid or enzymes. Therefore, they don't break the food down well enough. And then, of course, we can always give extra lymphatic support. That's why my ginger is my go-to, or burdock root's great, which really helps the lymph. And a lot of this area is just all lymph from the frontal sinuses. So keeping that lymph moving is very, very helpful. Does your family and friends pick your brain as much as us? I can see a lot of advice given over Thanksgiving Day dinner. Let's just say this. You are never a prophet in your own town. You are never a prophet in your own town. Let's just say people that are closest to you have less appreciation of that. We'll keep it simple. What's the best way to get more acid in your stomach? My stomach is extremely swollen. So first thing is, if there's inflammation or swollenness in your stomach, you have to work on cutting the bad foods out. So if there's inflammation in your stomach through foods, cut that out. Number 2, sometimes adding more acid actually helps. If adding more acid makes it worse, then we work on more calming and soothing support, and then we work on more enzymes as well. So it depends. If acid makes it better, work on the food first. Acid second. Acid makes it better, you're on the right track. Acid makes it worse, you got to calm it and use more enzymes in the meantime. What's your thought on Yohimbe, which is unregulated? It helps your norepinephrine release some adrenaline-bound fat cells. I've used it to get more lean, already being lean, and I feel good. I have no problem with that. I mean, I think some of these nutrients, some of these like kind of adaptogenic, kind of more stimulating compounds, and some of these herbs can be okay. Yeah, as long as you're not feeling overstimulated, I think you're fine. And also, as long as you're not doing it later in the day where it's affecting your sleep, as long as you can come down and relax in the evening and you're feeling okay and you can sleep okay and your parasympathetics feel good, meaning you're able to wind down, get your breathing good, feel relaxed, I think it's fine. Does dandruff, scalp buildup indicate Candida overgrowth? Yes, it can. It definitely can. If you're having, but also it could be more localized too. It doesn't necessarily mean it's systemic, but it could. So we always look at it, we treat, we like to look at all the other symptoms going on: jock itch, fingernails, athlete's foot, any tinea versicolor rashes, digestive issues, those kind of things. Also, lab tests. Do you have any diarabenitol in your urine? Is there any yeast coming back or Candida microsporidium or rhodotorula on the GI map test? Those are all helpful things to look at. Amanda writes in, I don't know if this came through earlier, but can you please discuss hidradenitis causes and preventing? So hidradenitis, I think hidradenitis suppurativa is what you're referring to. That's like an autoimmune condition where there's boils and kind of skin lesions that form. So number one is there tends to be an autoimmune component. Number two, you really have to decrease the sebum, and you have to decrease the extra oils and sebum that's being produced by those skin cells. So first thing is make sure you get insulin and inflammation under control. Inflammation from refined foods, excess junky omega-6s, excess refined sugar and junk, and then of course autoimmune like cutting out grains, of course legumes and dairy as well. Starting with that can be helpful. And then if you're trying to treat some of those things, you can always do like some activated charcoal bentonite clay over it with things like witch hazel, oregano, tea tree melaleuca, those kind of things. But the activated charcoal or bentonite can really pull some of the toxins out, while some of those astringents can kind of get into your skin and help knock down the infection underneath, so the boil does not have to ideally rupture. You're welcome, Rhonda. Hope it's helpful. Please continue to share with friends and family and put comments below the video. Thumbs up and sharing helps. Laura writes in, problem with allowing a fever to increase is age, and what is causing the fever? A virus can be destroyed by a fever, but it has to run its course. The older we get, the less level of fever we can tolerate. My biggest thing is get immune support going on there. I'm always going to be on support, with higher dose vitamin A, higher vitamin C, higher vitamin D, astragalus, medicinal mushrooms. So I'm always going to be supporting my immune system. So while that fever is happening, I'm going to be able to kill things and knock things down as well. Do you eat fruit, and if so, how much? The fruit that I'm primarily going to be consuming is going to be berries. I'm going to be doing blueberries, raspberries, strawberries. At night, I will do a green apple with cinnamon, and I will do some almond butter on it. So typically, those are my big ones. I try to keep it to lower sugar. My cheats are going to be like some dry mango pieces. I'll have a couple of those, but I try to, try to have those more at night, and I try to be very low carb during the day. So breakfast is going to be 20 grams of collagen, some butterfat, some MCT, some coffee. In between, I'll typically have some celery juice, more for micronutrients and potassium. And then lunch, I'm going to have some kind of a salad with 4 to 8 ounces of protein on there and some additional fat, and then maybe some berries and some unsweetened coconut yogurt. And then my dessert will be like a keto cup or a Lily's peanut butter or almond butter cup, which is sweetened with stevia. Try to keep the sugar down during the day so I'm burning more fat. Try to be active, at least on my feet or moving. And then in my gym, I will typically set up a circuit 1 to 2 times a day where I'll come in there and either do a combination of 3 movements in a row, whether it's a kettlebell or a row or a push or a lunge. And I'll try to do 3 movements back to back, 4 sets of it. And I'll try to do that, first half of the day and last half of the day. If I only can work out for 5 to 8 minutes, I'll try to do it twice a day. And then also make it a goal to get 15,000 steps a day as well. Great questions. How can it be possible that after 3 stool tests, my GI map all of a sudden has H. pylori? Hard to say. It could have been in there deeper. I would need to look at all the tests and to see what's going on and look at the whole clinical picture. But it could have been something that was deeper in the gut. It's called crypt hyperplasia, and it made its way up. Also, it could be you caught it. It could be someone in your family or someone you're having relations with got exposed to you. So it's hard to say. You need to know more of a clinical picture of what's happening. Lynn writes, Dr. J, what causes vertical ridges on the fingernails? So typically it's going to be protein issues. protein issues. Of course, like trauma could be it if you banged it up, right? There could be that. But if it's a systemic issue, we want to make sure we're breaking down protein and fat and obviously getting enough zinc too. So we're going to look at those things to make sure we're getting enough protein and fat, and we may add extra collagen on top of it to help. And of course, we may look at the gut, because if we are getting enough protein and fat, but we're not digesting it appropriately, we're going to keep that in mind as well. Tips to manage mucus with your 1-year-old kid. Doing nasal rinse 3 times a day already. Foods to avoid. What keeps getting sick for weeks and complications. Daycare is virus after virus. Yeah, so number 1 is get a nasaline. So when you do a nasal rinse, it's more forceful, meaning it has more pressure. Therefore, it can kind of break things up. Number 2, do the neti exfoliator packet. So you have the xylitol there. The xylitol will kill bacteria up in the nose. So you can always do that. And you can always add a couple of drops of iodine and silver to it. So you're actually flushing the nose out while you're killing things that could be up in the deeper mucosal tract. And I typically, with my son, if we're going to some place where there's other kids, we're going to be giving him echinacea and golden seal preventatively. And I'm giving him an immunoberry formula that has a couple of different medicinal mushrooms in there as well. And then I'll up the vitamin C, liposomal vitamin C, and I'll up the cod liver oil with vitamin A. So my son, I supplement him very well. And of course, we bring the Eon essential oil brace sanitizer. So we spray down his hands, clean, and then we just try to make sure he's in relatively clean areas and then spray him down afterwards, those kind of things. That's the easiest thing. And then we use the good sinus flush that has the xylitol in there, and we add, like I mentioned, the silver and the iodine drops if needed. Great questions, though. Matt writes in, I've been running a lot lately. I find it absolutely crazy. The recommendations about carbs give you energy. Take sugar cubes, eat pretzels throughout, etc. It's crazy what we got into. Yeah, I do. I do totally get that. Now, if you're doing a lot of extreme work, getting some glucose in ahead of time can be very helpful. As if you are doing more running or more sprinting or more long distance stuff, you will start to burn more glucose. But in general, we want to be more fat burners, and spiking insulin up makes it much harder to burn fat. It really does. You tend to be more of a sugar burner, but it depends upon how intense the movement is. But in general, I agree. I do find that carbs the night before give me better power output. Yeah, it's because you're tapping off some of your glycogen sources for sure. So then you have more glycogen to use the next day. So I totally agree with that. Any suggestions for bleeding nose from dryness in the winter? You could raise the humidity in your house. I have people here at my house now, plumbers coming in, HVAC people that are coming in that are cleaning out the filters and the humidifier. And we're raising the humidity to about 40% in the house. We want it below 50 because above 50 creates mold, but we don't want it to get like 20 or 25 because that could cause the capillaries in the nose to just get more fragile and break. So we just raise the humidity up to about 40% in the winter just so it's not getting too low. And you could do a localized dehumidifier or a localized humidifier. You just got to be careful because we did that in my house before and we created mold in the carpet. So you just got to be really careful and you don't overdo it because I'd rather have it be on the dry side and be dry and have these problems than do too moist and create mold. So you just got to make sure you monitor it. I like doing it systemically. That way the whole house is treated and I can look at my Nest thermostat and see where the humidity is sitting. And then obviously all the air runs through a dehumidifier. So it will test the humidity in the air anyway. Now, it won't trigger until it's 45% or 50% or above. So it's typically below that, but at least gives me a window where my humidity's at. By the way, my wife went on a Carnival Cruise, and I survived well with the ship's bottled water, LaCroix, just canned fish I bought, and for dinner I was able to handle all the fish they made. Great. That's great. Yeah, I think that's awesome. Always activated charcoal on those trips, high-dose probiotics, and some kind of a clearing herbal support just in case, but that's good that you were able to do well with it. So yeah, bottled water, LaCroix, that's awesome, man. Very good. Excellent. All right, y'all, any other questions here before I let you go? I'm going to be back probably before Thanksgiving, maybe a couple of times. I love having these questions and engaging with y'all. Anything else you want to let me know? Dr. J, can you use buckets of water in the room to increase humidity? I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that. Typically, I like doing it. If you can get a humidifier, but you just got to be careful you don't do too much. Or you can get a systemic humidifier that attaches to your HVAC. You just have to make sure you monitor the humidity. Don't let it go above, my opinion, 45%, just to be safe. 50, 60 is where mold starts to grow. 50 is kind of the, the in-between zone. 45, you're pretty safe. So 45%, you're good. A systemic humidifier isn't that much. They're like $100. And then you can have your house kind of all dialed in. All right, y'all. Hope everyone is doing great. Have a awesome week. I'll be back later on either today or tomorrow or Wednesday. Regarding fasting exercises, I just recommend Tabata, interval training, and circuit. Just find an upper body, lower body, upper body. I like to do 3 movements in a row, 4 sets, and then you can combine that with a Tabata at the end or the beginning. Kind of knock down your glycogen stores pretty darn well. Give yourself a little bit more carb reservoir so you're not getting big blood sugar spikes or insulin spikes because you have enough reservoir to hold that carbs, and then you're pretty good. And then you can always come back the next day to tap off and burn up whatever you stored in the muscles again. And also activated charcoal if needed for extra alcohol, which I will be consuming. I will be doing my favorite Chandon Brut, which is very dry Prosecco, very, very dry. And I'll use activated charcoal and extra glutathione during that. And I'll do extra enzymes and HCl during food and probiotics to tap things off as well. All right, y'all. I'll be back before the holidays. You guys take care. Bye now.